What's up, party people? Today is June 20th, 2018. You are watching Counterculture with Aaron Lujan. This is my podcast. This is episode 27. Worse than separating children from their parents is exploiting them for political gain. This is the pre-show, guys. It's 11:01 Mountain Standard Time, 10:01 Pacific. I'm going to start the broadcast here in 3 minutes. So at the 3-minute mark, go ahead and, if you're watching the rebroadcast, forward to the 3-minute mark. I use these first 3 minutes to allow people to get the live notification. Trying to beat Mark Zuckerberg's algorithm. He's suppressing and censoring by the day. If I was toting the establishment line, I'd probably have a lot more viewers, but who knows? Maybe I just suck. But thanks for joining me nevertheless, guys. This is episode 27. What's up, George? What's up, Tacho? ¿Qué pasa, raza? What are you doing? So yeah, like I said, 3 minutes. Go ahead and go on over to that minute mark, and that's when the official podcast will start. I'm streaming this live on Facebook with my friends and family, but it's also being recorded as a podcast on iHeartRadio, Spotify, iTunes, all the major podcast players. Everything's housed at aaronlujan.com. Prepsave.com pays the bills. If you guys aren't prepared for the inevitable, use promo code friends and family at checkout at prepsave.com, guys. Storable food, storable water, all the things that you don't have that you wish you had when poo-poo hits the fan. Unfortunately, I went to Catholic elementary school, so I'm a very poor at math, and so I lost track of when the 3-minute mark is. So let's just hope that I'll be at approximately the 3-minute mark. I'm listening to Blue Monday New Order, and it started around 2 minutes, so that means at 5 minutes we should be done, or should be ready. Yeah, guys, wow, what a news week, right? All over the place. Thought I absolutely had to address this. Big disinformation, emotional heartstrings are being pulled, and people are really getting riled up. So I'm hoping to provide some cool, calm, and collected analysis to lead us to the truth, as opposed to believing lies and getting played. Y'alls don't want to get played now, do y'alls? Do y'alls a favor? Add y'alls to the English dictionary language. Alright, guys, it's probably around 3 minutes, so let's just get started. Let's turn off New Order, Blue Monday, and get into a lot of trouble right now. Welcome. Today is June 20th, 2018. This is Counterculture with Aaron Lujan. This is episode 27. Worse than separating children from their parents is exploiting them for political gain. Big news week. I wanted to begin the broadcast by sharing a story with you guys about, and this ties in perfectly to the issue that we're dealing with this week. Everybody's panties are bunched up. Many of them rightfully so. I'm personally, let me just get the cat out the bag. I disagree with the current policy of separating children from parents. I think that it's a bad policy, and that's the buzzkill right now. But let me begin by sharing a story with you guys. So about a couple years ago, I was traveling on I-25 from Albuquerque, New Mexico to Santa Fe, New Mexico. Now, at the time, I was in a sports car, California license plates, big rims, definitely stood out. And the speed limit, if I remember correctly, was 75. And I know New Mexico State Highway Patrol really well, and they are the California Highway Patrol on steroids. These guys are ready to pull you over if they see a tick on your shoulder. So I'm minding the speed limit, and I remember specifically I had it at about 77. And the reason I had it at 77 was because I got pulled over. I got pulled over doing a 77 and a 75. And what I also did, which any of you from California can relate to better than anybody, is if you're driving behind a slow car and you're in the slow lane and there's a 2-lane highway, you have the opportunity to merge to the left, what we in California call the fast lane, pass the guy up, accelerate for a moment, not exceed the speed limit tremendously, and get in front. So long story short, I get pulled over. Why am I being pulled over? Cop has big attitude, treating me like a drug dealer, just horrible attitude. Definitely out to get me, definitely didn't like me. And he's giving me a ticket, fullest extent, highest fine for exceeding the speed limit and driving erratically. Exceeding the speed limit? I ask. Well, what did you catch me at? He said, I caught you at 77. So I said, well, isn't the speed limit 75? He's like, yeah, do you know math? That was literally his answer. Do you know math? I mean, okay, big attitude, right? I'm like, wow, I got the speed limit for 77 and 75. And then he goes further and says, and you were driving recklessly, reckless driving citation. You're going to court now. Reckless driving officer. Now, I'm being very respectful, right? Because I do have, I'm always respectful with officers, always. I ask, officer, may I ask why I'm being cited for reckless driving? And the response was, well, you passed that car over there earlier in a very reckless manner. You shoved yourself over the lane and over there. I'm like, very subjective analysis, right? I mean, how can you determine, erratic? What I did was I merged lanes. It was not erratic. I was not driving recklessly. If I was driving recklessly, I would at least be going over 77. But nevertheless, I go to court and I'm go before a judge. And this courthouse in New Mexico is a zoo, man. I'm like in there with all these dudes in their orange jumpsuits, going in there for some serious crimes. So they put everybody in the same court system. They don't differentiate in New Mexico. Forgive me for the long story. Judge, worse attitude than the cop, looked to me like a woman with an axe to grind. And she said, Mr. Lujan, there is no such thing as a fast lane. And you were exceeding the speed limit. And I said, 77 and a 75. And she goes, that is the law. And that's my point in telling the story, guys. Why am I starting the story about me getting pulled over and getting yelled at by a cop and a judge in New Mexico when the title is worse than separating children from their parents is exploiting them for political gain? Well, I felt like the legal system in New Mexico, the officer who pulled me over and the judge who gave me the big gigantic fine, I don't even remember what it was, but it was retarded. It was like hundreds of dollars. They used the law in the books to go after me because who knows the reason why. Because think about it reasonably, guys. 77 and a 75, yes, granted, I am exceeding the speed limit. How many people out there go over a few miles over the speed limit, and how many times do they get pulled over? I mean, in California, I don't know if this is good, but you can literally fly by a cop 10, maybe 15 miles over the speed limit and not worry about it. It's usually when you get to that 20, 25 that you're asking for trouble. So what my point in all this, in sharing you this story, is the fact that I had the law thrown at me because the law enforcement and the judge wanted me to be punished. They wanted me in the system. And so the reality is that's what's happening today. We have outrage right now. We received images late May, which started this entire circus of children, what look like cages, in federal detention centers. Prominent white liberals were tweeting on Twitter, where else can you tweet? Shame on America. This is an outrage. I cannot believe this is happening. We are separating children from their parents. We're putting kids in cages. This is an outrage. Linda Sarsour, the radical feminist Muslim, if that's a thing, apparently it is. Linda Sarsour is one. Chimed in. John Favreau, Obama's former speechwriter, Jake Silverstein, the chief editor-in-chief of the New York Times. You guys forgive me, my voice is going out. I was sick all day yesterday. Hal came out and said, shame on America, shame on Trump. How can we be separating children from their parents? Except for one small problem. The picture was from 2014. And in case anybody's following the chronology of American politics, Donald J. Trump was not president in 2014. Okay? Actually, I got to stop myself from digressing because I'm fired up tonight, guys. So the picture that was tweeted out was from 2014, and they had to backtrack, but that's where this story started. It started from images of conduct under the law that was happening prior to Trump taking power. Nevertheless, I'd like to give you some more genesis of the story. So around 2014 is when we had a huge surge of immigrants from Honduras, from Nicaragua, from El Salvador, coming to the United States due to violence and poverty, but primarily extreme violence. Not to mention the usual surge of Mexicans, illegal Mexicans coming to the southern border. So what happens under the law is, first of all, it is illegal to cross the border outside of a port of entry. It's a crime. It's always been a crime. And under the law, that at bare minimum, the exact law that's in place now was under the Obama administration, is that parents are criminally prosecuted, and kids of those migrant parents, if they're traveling with their parents, go to sponsor parents, which are typically relatives in the U.S. or close friends, or detention facilities or foster care. That is the law on the books. Trump did not create that policy. The policy's been in place, bare minimum, since the Obama administration, arguably 60 years. 60 years on the books. But we're just getting excited about it in May. Why is that? I'll get to that in a second. So it's important to understand the intricacies of the law and the process and the procedure that takes place so we can understand if the outrage is appropriate. Because I am of the opinion that when you separate children from their parents, that's a really bad idea. The punishment does not fit the crime. If you're trying to enter, and again, this is just my opinion before I get into the intricacies of the law, I want to be very clear on where I stand personally. If you separate your children from your parents but literally just for entering the country legally, I feel that is undue punishment. However, there is more sophistication in the context than just innocent children with innocent parents trying to get a good job. The Border Patrol, when they apprehend adult aliens at the border and they're being and they have children with them, one of the main concerns and the priorities is this child actually with their real parents, or could this be a human trafficking situation? One very interesting statistic that I learned tonight is that there has been a 314% increase in children crossing the southern border into the United States by not their parents, but by human traffickers. So I would argue that it's a service to the public, it's empathetic and it's compassionate to try to sift out who are the actual parents from the actual children. That is a policy of compassion when you have a 314% increase in human traffickers bringing children across the border. But you're not going to hear that from Hayes on MSNBC. You're not going to hear that from Anderson Cooper. You're not going to see this in Now This News and all of these left-wing, radical, anti-American internet video services that pop up in your news feed trying to brainwash you and make you hate this country and make you hate this president. I'm not a fan of the president, by the way. I've been critical of the president before he was even elected. This is not a pro-Trump, MAGA, let's defend, Donald Trump, Rush Limbaugh hour. This is just, I'm sick and tired of people lying and not telling the whole story, okay? My last 2 podcasts ago was criticizing the president when no one else was willing to criticize him. So don't think that this is me sitting up here defending the president by any means. Back to the policy and procedure. The policy when you're apprehended at the border is to find out if the adult under the supervision of this child is a security risk. So many times the parents, they're not really parents, are being separated from minors at the border. They're not actually parents, okay? What the media is not telling you is that the adults that are being separated from the children are not actually the parents. They are actually security risks. Okay, that means that they already have previous criminal records. They've been deported before. They're on record for being sex traffickers. These are bad people. Okay. Number 2, there has not been any change in the law under Obama. Okay. The only change that's being made now is Obama's catch and release. Under Barry Soetoro's law, aka Barack Obama, if you were apprehended at the border, there was a catch and release program where that's what it is. They'd catch you and they'd release you. They'd give you a citation, come to court. Well, guess what? 80% of people never came to court. So the only change in policy that has actually been made under this new Trump administration is that they removed the catch and release policy. There has been no change to the policy. This is not a new policy. This is not Trump's idea. Oh, I hate brown people. Let's put them all in cages and let's call it zero tolerance or whatever they're calling it. The reality is that the law's been in the book for years. Breitbart reported on this in 2014. I want to say that I shared this on Facebook. I was outraged at the conditions and at the laws that were in place at the time, but nobody wanted to talk about it. Why? Because it was that nasty Breitbart.com. Oh, those wicked, evil conservatives and their conspiracy theories, and they just hate Obama because he's black. And we're not going to listen to anything these people have to say because conservatives are evil and Obama's a sweetie angel, while there was pictures being put all over the internet of the same pictures that these liberals were tweeting this week and then had to delete their tweets. This is a joke, you guys. What a freaking joke. Okay. Once they're apprehended and put into custody, they're sent to court under the U.S. Marshal Services for pre-trial determination. This whole process is taking a matter of weeks, okay? The child is put in Human Health Services custody, and they're classified as an unaccompanied alien child. They are not put in cages. Some of the pictures that were put on the internet were cropped photos of children at protests, literally in cages, crying because if I put my 3-year-old daughter in a cage at a political protest with a bunch of cameras and people crying at her, she'd be crying so her mom could go get her so she can eat gummies. We call them gomitas, snacks. Okay? The reality is that some of the photos that have been released by Human Health Services are images of beds, of 3 meals a day, of education. It's all temporary. There are people working around the clock to put them in sponsor homes, as it has been the law for at least a couple of years, okay? If there is any specific allegations or evidence of wrongdoing, if there's any abuse, don't you think for a second that would have gotten leaked? Don't you think for a second that the anti-Trump media would have shared with you the evidence of a child literally being abused? Of course they would. If they're going to go to the extent of publishing photos from 2014 and then lying to you and saying this is Trump's new policy, when Breitbart reported it back in 2014 and nobody cared, you think they're going to lie about the conditions these children are in? Of course. No, what we get, of course children are going to be traumatized. My daughter cries her freaking lungs out like she's literally dying when her sister hits her with a book. So it's going to be very easy to take audio of children crying at the detention centers. And by the way, and I'll get to this in a second, they're playing it on loudspeakers as people are going to fundraisers for Trump events or whatever. I mean, these people are insane. But anyways, I got a news flash for you. U.S. criminals are separated from their parents every day. Every day. Parents, U.S. citizen criminals, American citizens who break the law are sent to prison and separated from their children. Where's the outcry? I would like to make the argument that this is very selective for lots of reasons. One of them being this is only directed at illegal aliens, undocumented migrants. There is zero outrage when American citizens are separated from their children. Why is that? If we're opposed to the policy in the criminal justice system of separating children from their parents, shouldn't we be consistent? Shouldn't it apply to all people rather than just undocumented migrants at the border? Because if I told my wife on the way home yesterday, I said, if we decide, sorry, I was sick yesterday, guys, but I don't care. I said, hell or high water, I'm coming for everybody today. So shut off this podcast if your feelings are delicate or if the truth bothers you, or if you're closed-minded. This is not for closed-minded people. That's why it's called counterculture, going against the culture, because the culture is filled with lies. I told my wife, if we were to go rob a bank tonight, because last night we happened to be without our two daughters. Two of our daughters were at a friend's house. It was just my wife and I and our baby. And I said, baby, let's go rob a bank right now. And if we rob it, we'll probably get caught, right? She's like, yeah, we'll probably get caught. I said, okay, cool. When we get caught, what do you think is going to happen to our kids? Well, logically, if we don't already have a trust in place, they're going to go to the foster system. That's called separation from my child. It would be very traumatic for my daughter and my son. If I were to plead with you guys on Facebook, I'd be like, please, guys, this is inhumane. This is unjust. Wouldn't there be a little part of you that said, yeah, I feel bad for you, but you decided to rob the bank, though. And you did it knowing you had kids. Maybe if you don't want to give that trauma to your children or yourself, maybe you shouldn't cross the border. Now, I'm not saying that this is reasoning or rationale to separate children. I'm not. What I'm simply saying is why must all the blame and all the criticism be on the law enforcement officers and the law itself? Why can't the criminals share in some of the blame? But I digress. Let's continue. The media is also lying to you because if a minor approaches a port of entry like San Ysidro or El Paso and they apply for asylum, they're getting asylum. Parents with their children are getting asylum. The media is not even denying that. What they're saying is, what they're lying about is saying that, no, actually I take that back. I think I misspoke. They are lying and saying that at least some liberals and some of my leftist friends on Facebook have reposted left-wing personalities who are lying to you and saying that when minors and undocumented families apply for asylum, they're being denied and being separated. That is actually not true. Okay, there is no evidence of that. They are lying to you. Believe me. Parents, once they are released, can become sponsors. That's the current law. So typically, if they go through the court process and which is usually, no more than, I don't know, it hasn't been very long, especially when you consider the fact that this is a recent phenomenon. They can immediately apply to be sponsors of their own children. So it's a temporary thing. And again, this is not rationale for separating children. I got to repeat myself. But I'm making these points because the narrative is we have Adolf Hitler reincarnate setting up concentration camps and separating children from their parents just because they crossed the border, and it's indefinite and it's inhumane and it's across the board, and that is just simply not true. The devil's in the details. We must look at the actual policies if we're going to debate about the policy rather than just spouting off talking points from what we hear off of Facebook. I read the law. I've done the research, okay? I'm not basing this off of talking points and what I see on my newsfeed, okay? I actually listened to the Health and Human Services Director. I actually read the law in the books. I went through the history, okay? I don't want to be misled, so I research. I would encourage you to do the same. If you're just paying attention to the mainstream media, you're probably really upset thinking that Trump is Hitler, okay? All the officers speak Spanish at the border. They explain the entire process. They know what they're getting into. This is not shock and awe. They will not, Department of Homeland Security is not separating families seeking asylum. They will not face prosecution. And the biggest point I want to make out of all this, Congress can change the law at any time, yet everyone is blaming Donald Trump. This is all on the footsteps of Donald Trump. I'm not a Trump defender. I'm not a Trump supporter. I've been critical of Trump when it's necessary to be critical. I'm defensive of Trump when it's necessary to be defensive. Why? Because I'm not aligned to Donald Trump. I'm aligned to the truth. I'm aligned to reality. I'm aligned to the fact that the sky is blue, that gravity exists, and that my skin is brown, okay? I don't want to live in a bumper sticker political world. I don't want to wear a jersey, okay? The reality is that Trump didn't create the law. Trump is not responsible for changing the law, but yet Trump is getting all the blame for the law. The law was put into power by the Democrats, and it was upheld by Obama. Breitbart reported on this. Nobody cared. If the law wants to change, Congress is welcome to change it. Trump is also not in support of the legislation. He personally says, I am not in support of this. He asked the legislature to change it, and he made a big mistake today. And here's why I'm going to be critical of Trump. He capitulated to the bullies that you guys are bullies on the left, and illegally passed an executive order requiring that this no longer take place. Now, do I agree with the spirit of it? Absolutely. I agree with Trump. I agree with the left that this shouldn't be happening. Big no-no that he capitulated and passed an executive order. He even said he wasn't going to do it and did it anyways. I'm not a fan of executive orders. I'm a big fan of the Constitution. The laws are passed by Congress, not by a dictator. If the left is cheering for this, wow. That's not a good idea, guys. We shouldn't be cheering for the president legislating law. So big, bad Trump for that. Again, I think he was playing politics. He abused his power today by announcing that he was going to rescind those laws when he said he wouldn't, and he's not allowed to do that legally. But it's laughable because he's still getting criticized. So you're still not going to win with these people. After the announcement on Fox News, Facebook just switches over to the next video. And for whatever reason, there was a video of these radical far left La Raza, Mecha, Mexican Hispanic groups in Tempe, Arizona. Hello, my name is Carla Ochoa, and I'm from La Puente Immigration Reform, and we're here to tell Donald Trump that passing this executive order is not enough. From day one, we've been demanding for no deportation, no incarceration, no human is illegal. You guys, this is Piven and Clyde researched it. This is a foreign attack on our country if you have groups inside the United States demanding that the law not be enforced. Mexico has military at their border with Guatemala. Israel has walls with, soldiers pointing weapons. And we just got this big open border, and we got Islamic groups and radical far left Mexican groups and Central American groups advocating for the destruction of law and order and the uncooperation at best Violent attacks at worst on law enforcement, on ICE. I was in LA a couple months ago, and on a billboard, I saw immigration customs enforcement posters. There is a antagonistic attitude towards law enforcement. This is crazy. And the reaction has been ridiculous. So now that you know the law, the reaction is just so much more ridiculous. NBC News, kids will suffer permanent brain damage. U.S. bishops and the Pope are asking for this to end. Republicans are going against Trump for this. Pro-lifers are hypocrites. Because how can you care about babies in the womb but not stand up for the children in the cages? We're asking calls for Congress. Donate to the ACLU, the same ACLU who I think has $300 million in the bank. And all they do all day is pimp liberals, literally pimp you guys and play you guys out for being uninformed. And you just send them money. What is the ACL doing with your money? What accountability do they have? You guys, they have $300 million in the bank. What the hell is Potok at ACLU doing with your money? Potok, by the way, runs ACLU. He's a leftover hippie. A lot of drug use and cocktail parties over at ACLU, but I digress. Trump and the ICE have been called baby snatchers. They've been called to go protest at the concentration camps. And the UN is now getting involved. And we need to contact lawyers. Lawyers need to get involved. And $5.6 million was raised this week alone on Facebook. And concentration camps, and my favorite, we are now looking like Nazi Germany. The Atlantic calls it the essence of Trumpism. Huffington Post, I quote, "I don't know how to explain to you that you should care about other people," end quote, was the title of their article. And then it gets really nasty with Peter Fonda today tweeting, "Rip Barron Trump from his mother and put him in cages with pedophiles." You guys, the left has no limits. I will repeat myself. The law's been in the books for at least 5 or 6 years. In 2014, Breitbart and conservatives were screaming at the top of their lungs, this is wrong. Something needs to be done. Everybody ignored us. Nobody wanted to pay attention. Obama was confronted by, I believe, the Washington Post and said, what are you going to do about the baby cages? Look it up. He admitted it and didn't care. Nobody cared, guys. Nobody cared. The same people that didn't care in 2014 are blaming it on Trump, but failed to realize that it wasn't Trump's policy. Blaming it on Trump and asking him to do something when it's not his ability to do anything. And all that has to happen is Congress just needs to change the legislature. Everyone's blaming it on Trump, but Trump agrees with us that this is a bad policy, but they don't want to listen to him. So he goes further and places an executive order illegally, which I disagree with. And guess what? It's still not satisfying. Have you guys gotten the picture yet? Have you guys realized that people don't really care so much about the kids and what's happening, but they care more about scoring political points? They care more about sabotaging this president and this administration than they do about the kids. Because if they really cared about the kids, wouldn't they have cared about the videos that showed that babies were literally being ripped apart out of their mother's wombs and their body parts being sold to companies? Nobody cared about that. Nobody cares about the 56 million murdered babies. Oh, they're not babies. It's just a bunch of cells. While at the same time, we had a presidential candidate in 2016. I'm not going to name names. I'll just tell you she was a woman. She advocated in a debate for late-term abortion, saying it should be legal. I don't even want to explain the procedure of late-term abortion, but let me tell you something. It's a lot better than being apart from your parents in a room full of other migrant children, getting 3 meals a day, getting educated, getting clothed, and getting bathed. It's a lot better than having your arms and legs ripped off, your limbs ripped off, and being stabbed. Okay? Nobody cared about the children then. So the same people that are lecturing me about don't you care about the kids, while ignoring the law, while ignoring that this was going on under Obama, while ignoring the fact that Trump is against this, while ignoring the fact that this can change in Congress. I'm being lectured by people who saying we need to give more legal protection to people who broke the law, while ignoring American citizens who are being separated from their children for breaking the law. I hope I've communicated to the fact that this is selective outrage. This is a political football, okay? This is an opportunity to go after a president who's winning. Now, I'm not on the Trump train, but man, you guys are pushing me on this train like really hard right now, because I was opposed to this president from the beginning. But the fact that Donald Trump has become the masthead of sanity against these insane people like Linda Sarsour and this clown Peter Fonda and Jake Silverstein, editor-in-chief of the New York Times, and all these mainstream, Chris Hayes. Shame on all you people, man. You guys are nuts. You guys are nuts. That's it. Episode 27, worse than separating children from their parents is exploiting them for political gain. My fingers are tingling. I'm hot, but I appreciate you guys allowing me this opportunity to have therapy, because all of this is built in all week long, and I was just ready to let it out. I literally vomited yesterday, and I think it wasn't the stomach bug I caught. I think it was this issue. Sorry for all the details. I was sick yesterday. AaronLujan.com. This is Counterculture. Thank you for joining me, guys. Please share this if you guys think this was cool. And don't forget to subscribe on the podcast. Take care. Love you guys. Peace.